This is the History of Agriculture class again. And I'm sitting on my immediate right, Larry Woodbury, and next to him, Judy Woodbury. As you might guess that they're married. They're a ranch couple from down near McLeod, North Dakota, which is also near the Sheyenne National Grassland. And other things about their backgrounds, I suppose, are going to come out as we talk here. The unit of the course this week is pastoralism, meaning extensive livestock operations worldwide, and we have some quite close to us here. And that's so we're getting the case study of one aspect of pastoralism around the old Cheyenne Delta country. It's just about 40 miles southwest of Fargo here. And okay, Larry, I'm going to ask you to lead off with a little bit of personal and farm background, you know, where you come from and the establishment of your farm.
Okay, I was born and raised on the farm where I live. We had 5 kids in our family, and all of us went on the farm. We had one sister. She married a farmer over by Barney, North Dakota, but then all of us brothers farmed and ranched right around where we lived. And I started in 1975 with my youngest brother on farming, and I was going to show my dad how to make a lot of money. I said I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. Well, that didn't happen. Anyway, you know, but we are basically a cow-calf operation, and we raised some crops for cash. But the first year out, we got 24 inches of rain in 2 days, and we lost money. We lost $20,000 that year, which by today would be probably $120,000, who knows. But so the next 2 years we lost money too. I don't know why the bank hung with us. I worked at Melrose before that, but which is in Winter, North Dakota.
It's called Bobcat.
Bobcat now, yeah. Anyway.
But the farm goes back to your father established his farm.
My dad came there in 1934, and it's supposed to be a ranch, but when he first came there, he only had 7 cows, and he raised 500 turkeys, milked the cows, or most of them were milk cows at the time, and they had chickens, and anyway, they stripped June grass out in the pastures, and they sold that for seed to I forget the name of the outfit, but I remember it was around 4th of July, that's what we did, was strip June grass.
I want to return to that subject before we're done, don't let me forget.
Okay. Anyway, so there wasn't, way back then, but I was born in 51. He didn't, I don't know what year they got married, but my brothers and sister were born in the 40s. And then I was born in 51, and my youngest brother in 52. So, as the years progressed, you want the whole one. They could have raised 250 cows in the grasslands, one individual, but he had 141 head of cows. He had over 10 years to do it, and I told Tom over we are on supper. I said, how come you didn't have 250? I think, and if looks could kill, he would have killed me. This was before hydraulic loaders. Everything was by hand, pitching. Could you imagine? I always said I wouldn't have 12 cows. They eat a lot.
And he had a team of a mule and a horse.
He had a mule and a horse.
Yeah.
And he'd go and pitch it all on, come back, pitch it all off, go get another load, pitch it all on, pitch it all off. And I wonder why he stayed in such good shape. He weighed 195, not chubby like his son. You know? But he worked. And he was a hard worker, and he just kept his nose at a grindstone. And you know, as time progressed, and I asked him, what was your best invention that you ever saw in your career farm? He said the hydraulic loader. just, you know, said that made it easy. The tractors weren't so fancy yet, but he had an F-20 International. I don't know if you ever remember what they look like, but I remember he broke his arm once. He cranked it to start it and kicked back and broke his arm. Well, he just cranked it with the other arm. He was tough. Anyway.
You're doing the math then, you're 69,
Yeah.
and you say that you're retired.
Yeah.
So what's the current state of operations?
We have our sons. Well,
We have 3 boys, they're 29, 30, and 31.
we got married. I was just about 37 when we got married. She'd come in.
Let's bring you into this
This is
story
Judy.
now. So backtrack for your story.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a nurse, and I've always had an off-the-farm job. I worked part-time when the kids were young, and I helped do whatever. And our boys were always involved. You know, they grew up driving tractors and chasing cows, working cows. Tom, our oldest, was our brander. We branded at a pretty young age, and you know, the little boy, Bryce, you know, with those big cows, and we'd be sorting, you know, Wade, you know, my middle boy. They were all right there. Dangerous work, I guess. They'd probably say, the social service would probably say inappropriate child labor. But I mean, that's what you do on a farm. You don't have the money to hire, and they learn a lot. Our kids can do anything. They can fix, they're always gonna be able to survive. They can grow, they can hunt, they can cook, grow, you know, harvest.
And you've been working at the VA here for 10 years?
10 years.
Full-time at the VA?
Yep.
Operating room?
Operating room, I'm an operating room nurse.
Now, so is the operation still a cow-calf operation
Yes.
predominantly? Okay.
It's grown. Excuse me. But it's, well, Wade, excuse me, my voice. Wade's got a good job at Bobcat. So I rented him, or I sold him 1/4, and he's got 40 head of rights in the grasslands. So he has 40 head, but the other 2 have a bulk of it. They're a little disgruntled because he's not around much. But I said, well, he can be your gentleman farmer. He could help you down the road, but you got to communicate. And I always stress that, but so, I don't know.
Well, getting back to, these rights, they're members of the Cheyenne Valley Grazing Association, which graze cattle on the Sheyenne National Grasslands. And you have to have a base property that can provide for so many cattle. And that's how you get your grazing rights. So.
We better back up then.
Back
on
up,
Cheyenne
yeah.
National Grassland.
Yeah.
Let's just finish about our, right now they have like 760 calves born a year between them all. And, which is, there's bigger and there's smaller. And and she was talking about branding, and I heard the boys talking about branding and laughing. Wade, he's built like me. One got through to shoot the head gate, and it got away, and he just grabbed it, held it. Brand that sucker. And he said, we branded it. He held it. A 750-pound animal. He said, and he's strong. Whatever, that's just, and they're all strong, but whatever. That's just, but they got 760 cows. Right now they got a few more than that around. They're going to sell some, I guess. I try to stay out of that aspect of it, because whenever as a father, they want to run their own show, you know. So it's part of life. I think any family on a farm will go through that, or small business, whatever it may be, you know. And I'm trying to back out, but today I babysat our 1 week old granddaughter. And that was fun. Because their daycare provider, she had a sick child and they didn't want to take that young one there. But anyway, going to the Grazing Association, you wanna hear about that, or?
Well, let's get into it this way. You said, I believe the farm date's from 1934
Yes.
or 34, and that's getting in just before the land utilization project got going there, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
So, how did the Cheyenne, the Cheyenne National Grassland, like all the rest of them, started out as what was called a land utilization project in the 1930s.
Yeah.
How did that get started in your case down here?
You know, I've heard different stories. I've heard there was a couple of disgruntled people that wanted it bought up, and then I've heard, some people say that it wasn't any worse in our area as other areas. It was tough times all over.
But the rationale was, besides the depression, with their a drought situation,
For a drought.
and for the sake of kind of retrenching agriculture and for soil conservation, both. So the feds are coming in to reacquire land that had been private farm holdings.
Yeah.
And so, what have you heard about that? How it unfolded?
Well, in 1935, the land utilization is when they started buying up land, and the most they ever paid was $6 an acre.
$6 an acre?
Yeah.
Huh.
My dad just came there in '34 and bought his place for $3 an acre, and that was a tough place. The guy that was there walked away and left the farm credit or federal land bank, which was $5,000, which was a lot of money back then. But he walked, and Dad come in there. He only had $100 to his name, but they took that and financed him to buy that. Set him up on terms, and he made it, I guess.
So he no sooner had started than this organization of the land utilization project.
They come, then they wanted to buy this place from them, and he said they wouldn't offer me any more than I paid for it. So he said he said I sort of wanted to make some money. He said I'll stick it out. He goes, so he didn't sell. But some places, my grandfather on my mother's side, he was there, and they didn't own their land where they lived. And there was some people from Iowa that owned it, and nobody was making any money, so they weren't getting any rent. So they gladly sold it. Now there was living places there, but the government started coming in, and they knocked the corners of the barns down and burnt the barns, and then the houses were next. At once, because they had bought, they said you got to go. There was some disgruntled feelings, and then they started tearing down the houses, and just tearing them apart, saving the lumber or whatever they were doing. But then they got a different guy come in there, and he said, "This is stupid," which it was. He said, "Why can't we move these houses to town? Move them off. They were worth something. They were good." So they changed then about 2 or 3 years in. They just did that. And I'm sure there was families that, we're on the side of the families that stuck it out and benefited from it. But there's families that lost, were gone and left, pulled up stakes and left. So.
When you say the families that stuck it out and benefited from it, well, that's then from having that Sheyenne National Grassland there.
Yes.
In grass.
Yeah.
And available for grazing for people who don't own it, but have land nearby.
Yeah. So they bought in our area. Across the nation, they bought like 11 million acres. But, I'm not confident on that number. I seen it, but I think 11 million, but they put 6 million in the Grazing Association. The rest is parks and wildlife refuges and such. And so in other states, there's other grazing associations. But in our area, there was 70,180 acres they bought. So then they formed the Grazing Association. Well, the Bankhead-Jones Act come into play in July 22nd of 1937. But they'd already been buying land for 2 years. But that was to start reorganization for grazing and such. And the Grazing Association wasn't formed until 1943.
And so in the meantime, there'd been a process by which people who lived nearby somehow acquired grazing allotments.
Yes, you were allowed, from 1943 until 53. You had 10 years to build up your preference up to 250. Not a lot of people did.
No.
There was a few.
No?
You could have went to 250. No. But some of them guys had more hired men. Well, no.
Yeah.
And then backing up, that's where he said to his dad, why
Yeah.
didn't you have 250?
And he did good. My dad did good. And he was looked up. A lot of people looked up.
How was it decided who got in on the ground floor on that?
Okay,
Who was invited
to
put a certain number of animals in up to 250?
anybody, when they formed the Grazing Association in 1943, they were bringing in cattle from as far as 50 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the Bankhead Jones who was to reestablish the area and utilize it. So they incorporated a 2-mile boundary. You had to live within a 2-mile boundary,
Oh.
2-mile incorporated boundary of the association land.
Uh-huh.
So it gave the people that were living there a chance to fill it. Well, they seen it coming and they filled it. And it was a good opportunity for the families
Sure.
that were left. And it worked out. The grazing was right. Along the way, there was been bumps and roads. I had some about Joe Melton's and an interview he had, but there was talk about different Forest
Joe
Service.
Melton was president of the Grazing Association.
He was the executive secretary.
He was once president of the State Livestock Association.
Yes,
too.
he was that too. And but anyway, he said in there, and I agree with him, that the Forest Service would bring a guy in and rotate him every 3 years. Well, you'd get to just to know an area, and it's time to go, and then you bring in somebody else. Like the area in eastern North Dakota differs from western North Dakota, or Colorado, or Kansas, or wherever it may be, So it's really the land type varies. The grasses species are totally different. They responded. Fire out west is way more detrimental than it is here. Fire helps these tall native grass species. Anyway, so in a pastoral sense, but
So if you've got an allotment to put cattle in the Sheyenne National Grassland, when does that happen? And what's kind of the calendar of that?
okay, normally some pastures might go in, like some are 5, some are 6 months seasons. Some might start at the 10th of May, or most of them start around the 20th of May, and you go till maybe November 14th, right in there, somewhere like that, for a 6 month. Shorter if it's 5.5 or a 5 month. So.
And how were or are cattle delivered to pasture there?
Some people haul them. Some people live 10 miles away from a pasture where they run. We haul to one pasture, which is pasture down south, but we chase them with
Horses
either a
and
4-wheeler or
four-wheelers.
horses.
Mm-hmm.
Horses is still the best way to cattle. Cattle, sort
Are
of
there
cattle.
still horses on the place?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have there always been?
always been.
When you brand, did you rope and drag?
No.
No, we didn't. But it would be fun, I
We have
think.
neighbors that do that, but we don't have that.
We have one son that our oldest son he's a good horseman, and our other two boys don't like horses. So what do you do?
So in that national grassland grazing situation, what are the responsibilities? So people that own the stock, deliver the stock, do they just say bye-bye until it's time to remove them, or what's going on?
No.
Who's handling the water Is there rotational grazing and handling of shifting cattle from pasture? What's going on?
See,
and who's doing it?
They have grazing agreements through association with
the Forest Service.
With the Forest Service.
Mm-hmm.
And every 10 years that's renewed. But then so we work with the Forest Service. Right now it's a Stacy Swenson. She's one of them. And,
if you go up to a windmill out there, whose windmill is that?
well, with pasture, the windmill belongs to the government.
You know, we should have
But-
brought a map, because
The windmill, once you put it in there, you paid for it, we paid for it, but it belongs to the government once it's on their land. But, but in return, you get a cheaper rate of grazing. But we have put in a lot of, the fences we put in
Yeah, so you make improvements on the place.
on all the land.
But they don't
yeah.
belong to you.
No,
right.
once they're in their land, it's,
And there are different blocks. You know, there's different
there's a
land
little-
areas, and it's called a block. And then there's a director for each block. And how many blocks are there?
There's 11 blocks, so we have 11 directors, which, back at
And
one
then-
time,
You have a block meeting, so our block had the meeting last Thursday. And then, you know, you make how many cattle you're gonna have. And if you can't fulfill your permit, then you go over to what they call non-use, and then somebody else can pick up those head rights.
That's
And-
done within a block, though.
Right, right in the block. And then you make your grazing plan, so we're gonna start in this pasture, and we're gonna rotate this every so many days, you know, so there's different pastures in this block, and
There's fencing, so
Yeah.
a given block has multiple pastures. that you can
multiple
regulate.
pastures.
some of them have, okay, right now the boys are running in 1, 2, like 6 rotations out there, which should be more, but the Forest Service really doesn't want to go more because they got it's multiple use too.
Mhm.
They have horseback riders, hikers, and I can understand that.
And we have sheep for leafy spurge and control.
We don't have them. We have people running them there.
Basically contractors bring in
Yeah.
sheep
Right.
to graze down the spur.
But I mean, it is multiple use for hiking, hunting, or camping, or horseback riding, and whatever.
And what kind of environment is this, if you're going to describe it? I mean, vegetation,
Like
landform, what kind of place is this?
right up where we are, it's called the Savannah Oaks,
Mhm.
basically with oak trees in the hills and but then you got your open areas, which are all grass, big blue stem, little blue stem,
Silage gamma,
Indian grass, all the
June
Native.
grass,
A lot of chewing grass.
Kentucky
Yeah.
blue.
So it's a savanna landscape.
Yeah.
You know? You got some wet prairies in there.
Oh yeah, further south, we never used to get wet, but with last few years we've been wet up our country, but further south, they're always wet.
And some of that ground's got some fairly rugged relief in there. Sand hills.
Rugged, oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
up there it's, yeah, we have high hills. Or high compared to Hudson Fargo or animals. And it was a little bit of history. It was first managed by the Soil Conservation Service when they first started it.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then in 1953 through 54, it was managed under the Chippewa Forest, which is up in Minnesota. And it didn't. Those Forest Service guys were mostly timber. They didn't understand grazing aspects. So then they moved to the Custer National Forest, which is most of the ones west, and that's more grazing. And now it's under management of the Dakota Prairie, which is based out of Bismarck. And they formed for the North and South Dakota grasslands. And see, like there's certain rules, like Judy was talking about, but in the winter also, if you got your permit, so if you got 100 head, excuse me, you got 100 head permit, you got to take care of 55 head. You got to keep it on your place during the winter. And the reason being was they feel you're keeping animals here. You're spending the whole deal of it under Bankhead Jones Act was to keep families on the ground and spending money in the local communities, and that revolved. And for the most part, it's worked. We have a lot more young guys right in our area than, say, not that many miles away, where it's more bigger farming. And there was 170 in the beginning permittees, which we're down to 72 now. So we have shrunk too. And I feel we'd just as soon keep it that way, because I think there's strength in numbers. You get down to 20 operators, it'd be easier for the government, if there's some environmentalists get in there, with their hidden agenda and say we want to kick them off. It's easier to kick 20 families off than 70, So I don't know.
And then there's an upper limit. You can't have more than
400 head right now. They raised that, and that's part of why it went down. And there's been some, I call them big dogs. They want to raise it to 500, and I said, I'm not a member anymore because I retired. But my boys, they got enough work. They can't. It's hard to get all the work done, And
Judy, when did you marry into this deal?
32 years ago.
32 years ago. It's interesting your observation here. If part of the structure of setting up the grazing allotment scheme and the sort of regulations that prevail as to who can get in and keeping cattle nearby and that sort of stuff, if part of that is to keep a rural community in place, as it seems, was there one when you got there? Did you feel like you were entering a community?
Yeah, I do. Well, okay, when I first came out there, before we were married, we go out to the pasture and they had artificial inseminate cows. And so they checked.
That's a great date, yeah.
Well, okay, we were calving. And I was riding around with him checking, for new calves, and you tag to identify your calves, and we'd be driving around and he goes, oh, that one's mine. That one's mine. That one's mine. I'm kind of thinking, this is kind of weird. But it's the artificial insemination thing. But, and it's fun. It's a lot of work, but it's fun. But they go out to the pasture morning and night and check, heat detect, and then breed. And it is a community thing. Everybody works together. And
what are they working together on?
Because there's different people having cows in the same pasture. So all these guys, and you don't all have to go out there every morning and every night, but so many people go out there and heat detect. Do you want me to go into that?
You can briefly.
The cows are marked, and then 12 hours after they're marked, they'd breed them. So they'd mark down their numbers, and then they'd bring them in, and then 12 hours later they breed them. And then another, I think, is a fun thing is his brother bred 2 of his cows to a Brahma. So next spring, these calves are born with these big ears. Like, what? So he got him back. Bred his biggest cow to a little bitty bull.
That was a Watusi, some little African breed. You could barely reach the udder. Just a joke.
But,
the things you're describing are all around work routines, are they not?
Yeah.
And,
that's all we did was work.
okay, I've heard that one before. But are there?
But you have to make your work fun.
Are there things outside of the performance of tasks that are part of that community?
The Sand Dune Saloon.
The Sand Dune Saloon?
and the Silver Prairie Saloon.
Well, these are not to be forgotten. Sure.
Two bars in one town with 15 people. And you can go there on a weekend and back. I don't know why people want to come there, but they just love to come there. Fargo people, a lot of Fargo people. So maybe we should continue this class out there.
Maybe another time.
Yeah, sure, you can bring them all. Come spring is a nice time. But
Well, I don't know, everybody goes to church, we
Mhm.
have that, we always went over to someone else's house to visit. I mean, you always went, you just stop in and visit, you know, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
You know, you didn't have a lot of money and you lived in the middle of everywhere, so, yeah, we were rich in friendship ways. And you know, when you get away from it, there's nothing more beautiful than a sunrise and a sunset. You can't see them in Fargo. And I lived in Fargo for 10
it was
years.
a nice sunrise this morning.
Well,
And you get to,
so
you enjoy things like that out there, and you just kind of,
your local Forest Service rep, your Forest Service guy, is he a part of the community?
You know, they had,
no.
no, the last guy has been wonderful. I forget his name.
He is, but hasn't always been that way.
Oh, no, the previous one, nobody liked. But this guy they had now, but now he's moved back to Wyoming where he's originally from. But it's sad that he's leaving because everybody liked him.
Well, then that raises the whole proposition when you've got somebody representing the federal government and sent in and is at least theoretically in charge. But he's kind of like that priest that the bishop sends in and 3 years later rotates out and
Yeah.
doesn't want him to get attached.
Yeah.
But the ranchers are there, and they're there. The next guy's in, and they're when the next guy's in there. So who kind of prevails in the end in all that?
Yeah. Well, but between Forest Service, I was president once,
Yeah.
and you can have some real good arguments, but you stand your ground, and sometimes you got to give, sometimes you.
What would be things to argue about?
Well, they want to set certain. If they want to cut numbers out there, for whatever reason, say the prairie chicken, which the prairie chicken's not native. That's probably more native from where you from originally. It followed the plow up here, but they use that as an indicator species. Why didn't they use the sharp-tailed grouse? Because the sharp-tailed grouse has always been here, and they're thriving right now. Counting 43 out of the window the other morning, And right now so they wanted to cut numbers, like, okay, and then prairie fringed orchid. There's always a few, I call them environmental wackos out there. They're out there and they want to cut the numbers because cattle are destroying it.
Their agenda
Actually,
is
cattle
to
are-
get cattle off
cattle-
the grassland.
There was more numbers, where we run more intensively, we have more wildlife than where we run sparingly. And you get out into the middle of the grasslands where, it's, say you get 3 miles in, there's not as much wildlife as there is on the edges, whereas they're closer to other agricultural crops. So it's easy to figure out if you're a hunter, I could tell you where to hunt.
I'll be back to you about that.
Okay. And like right now, the boys, they go out in a size pile in the morning and come back with a great big shed antler. Look what I found. I said, well, that's mine. I still own the land. It's big.
You only get every third one.
Yeah,
I think
right.
is the thing.
Yeah. But anyway.
But, Forest Service, they've also got pressure from other,
Well, it's sort of like they were going to
Sierra
run.
Club, Nature Conservancy,
Some of these organizations are too far left, put it that way. Are we too far right? I don't know. I would like to think not. To think that we're more on track with nature and let nature be.
I think we're true environmentalists.
The prairie fringe orchid, I know where there's lots of them, but I don't tell them. Because they want to, as soon as you
They wanna
tell them, they
control
want to
them.
come and they want to count them. And then
They wanna control
you
them.
can't, they want to control you. Well,
Because we've done everything wrong according to their rules of the French Prairie Record, and we have more than anyone. So,
Yeah.
there's, and like I was saying, the Forest Service has pressure too.
Well, now
There's area that they've let it grow up to willows because they can't spray, they can't graze certain dates because they want to protect it. Well, now it's all willows.
But now it went from the orchid to some
Now there's a
hawk
butterfly.
moth, butterflies, some different, 2-3 different species of butterflies.
Well, there is a fire regime in
Yeah.
place in recent years.
Yeah.
Prescribed burning
Mm-hmm.
for, you can call it environmental management, you can call it range management, whatever it is. Does the use of fire in range management go back a long way there? I mean, were people doing that before the Forest Service reinstituted, or is that something then that's come in kind of with official management?
I'm gonna say before white man was there, Indians fire was used.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true.
Yeah, because fire.
Did your father do it though?
No, when he came after the Forest Service, then they started burning. Then they didn't need the Forest Service, they'd go out and burn. The ranchers
would do it.
But then one fire got away, I guess, and it didn't hurt anybody, but some fire got away in South Dakota, and then all the regulations, so now they gotta bring in government fire, and they're good people, got a job. They come in to burn, but if the week or 10 days that they're there and it rains for 8, they don't get nothing burned, So that's sort of, they leave, so then they're scheduled to go somewhere else, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't get burned that year. Well, we could burn the week later, but we're not qualified.
And the purpose of fire in management is?
Okay, fire gets, it enhances these prairie grasses. They really respond to it. Also gets rid of trees, woody species, new trees. And if you go back, it's just some of this from Joe Melton was, there just wasn't any trees because there was way more fire way back. But now we got willows and Russian olives.
Sumac.
Yeah.
A lot of sumac.
A lot of sumac.
Yeah, and one thing that I love to hunt. I love wildlife. I love seeing, and I'm getting older, so I don't shoot as much. We argue. You shoot. No, you shoot. Nah. So, but you get mellower as you get older. But anyway, the forest up in our area is getting, what do they call it? Mature. Too mature. There's not enough young browse. Where a fire and get some young stuff coming is what they need for the browse to keep them deer healthy in the tough winters. Because they need browse. The browse has a microorganism that keeps their guts working. Otherwise, they go overload on something else and they die. And right now we got over 100 coming into our silage. And they're welcome. I know neighbors that would shoot them. I know people that would shoot them or make the game and fish fence them. But they're part. If you live out there, they're part of you. I think that's we like animals. So, we have lots of them.
Brought up this business of stripping June grass seed. Now, I've seen a stripper down at the McClaw Museum.
Yeah.
What was the deal with this? When are we talking about that? When was the market for this seed? What was it going for? Who was harvesting? What's the deal with that product?
I don't know what it was going for. I can't remember. I was pretty young. But I remember on the 4th of July, most people were going to have picnics. We'd be stripping. But okay, along with June grass, there's prairie needles. You've been around them prairie needles. Needle and thread.
Oh, yeah.
Needle and thread, that's the needles. No, us youngest, they'd throw me. I was heavy, a bigger kid, but I was still young. And you stomp and pack them bags, big sack burlap bags full of June grass. You had to stomp it, but you get full of the needles, and it was horrible. It was hot, but we'd fill the truck.
And what was the stripper that would harvest that?
It wasn't much wider than this table, I don't think. and it had a drum with nails through it, and that just went around and around, and that would bring the June grass heads, kick it back into the back, and then you go till that was full, and then you take it out with pitchforks and fill these gunny sacks, and then my job was to pack the gunny sack.
The people weren't harvesting that for their own use in
No.
seed bachelors. This was being sent somewhere.
It was Peppered, I think was his name. I remember getting a ride in an old 37 Chevrolet truck, hauling a stock rack full of McLeod or Walcott, 2 different towns you could go to. And then they'd weigh it, and your dad would sell it.
There was a buyer who came in then
Yeah.
to organize this
Yeah.
and got people.
Oh yeah, he come from,
harvesting
I'm thinking he come from Iowa or somewhere. I'm not positive. I could look that up someday.
Now, what is this plant that you call June grass?
Well, see, there's a big argument. Like the Forest Service people say it was introduced. I question, how did it take over? I think it was here all the time. Everybody I asked, the old timers, they said it was always here. Well, who's right? I don't know. You know, a lot of the, you have to ask Bill Barker, maybe 5. How did it take over the whole damn country? You know, it was, but it's June grass is,
Early season.
well, it's a lot of it's in your lawns. It's like a little canoe type, little leaf, and it's fine. And it's good nutritional, but it runs out of gas because it only has 6 inches of root. So it's not really.
It's an early season grass.
Yeah.
And they use that as an indicator to when you turn your cattle out in the pasture.
Well,
I know.
that or other ones. 3.5 leaf stage, they'd like you to go out on the grasslands. And but the June grass, I don't know. I find it everywhere, and it's. I don't believe it was ever planted there.
Okay, now June grass at the Sheyenne National Grassland, is that regarded as a desirable thing, or is this something to keep contained and not allowed to proliferate anymore?
Well,
what's the situation?
So at that trailhead north of us, at Jordan's Hollow campground and trailhead, they've been last year they sprayed it, I think, twice. They're going to plant it back to native species. Well, I got news for them. There's a June grass seed bed in that soil, but
it'll
come
forever.
back.
Yeah.
It'll come back. Not saying that I don't give them an A for effort, you know, but we used to plant alfalfa, and then 3 to 5 years it would be mostly June grass. It would come back, that grass would, until they come with Roundup alfalfa, then you could keep the grasses down, you know. But there's Alden grass and June grass comes back quick. There's all the mother grasses that are there, their seeds are in the soil too. If you, Alan Savory, we took courses, holistic resource management, and I'm a firm believer that, you know, they say you got to reseed it. I don't think you'd have to reseed it. If you got patience, the grasses will come. It's there.
The wet years we got cattails.
And I never saw a cattail in our area until close to 2095.
Yeah.
We're in my area. I never saw a cattail. We had sandbirds.
What's going on with that?
Well, the water table, but where'd that seed come from? It had to have been there. Don't you think?
Yeah.
So
what's
Just waiting for the ideal
with the wet conditions, we got a wet cycle that came in. And okay, Art Hagen, he's dead and gone, but he always told me, and then there's another old guy, north of our place, up against the hills, said in 1918, the fence was totally underwater. Yeah. Hard to fathom it. Well, in 2009,
the fence was underwater.
Fence was underwater, totally underwater. We had a 40-acre lake up there, and it's up in the hills. It was just water pushing from the south. It was, well, you've been out there, but it just, that's how wet we've been, and it's hard to get rid of it all.
You ready to ask whether we got any questions from our group here?
Sure.
Sure, ask a question.
I don't think they'll be belligerent. What do you want to ask about?
Okay. I have a question. You said that it started at 50 miles. Anyone within 50 miles of grassland could get head rights. Is that the right word?
Within
And then it changed to 2 miles.
2 miles of the boundary.
2 miles of the boundary. And is it still 2 miles of the boundary? Or what's the current?
Incorporated boundary, they gotta be within 2 miles.
Okay.
And they were bringing cattle in, nobody had the cattle.
Mhm.
So they were bringing these cattle in from as far as 50 miles away, and these guys were getting a share of the calves, the local guys were getting a share of the calves in. And that's how that, but
They built their herds.
guys from
Got it.
over towards Wahpeton and over bringing
Yeah.
cattle in.
Mhm.
They said, we used to run, my family used to run cattle out there, you know? And then, so we should still be able to run cattle out there. And I said, well, then I should be able to have some of your sugar beets. You know, which who'd want them anymore, but I mean, they're not making any money either, so.
And the incorporated boundary is for the association or the actual grassland?
The grassland and association and the Forest Service, I guess the
Okay,
manage.
they're all the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, I know a guy, which I think was getting a little too finicky. His house, his barn was in the 2 mile boundary, his house wasn't. And they wouldn't,
Really?
he had to winter on another place. I just thought that's, but they wouldn't do it. And I wasn't on the board then, but I thought, Jesus, he's not a bad guy. You know, it's just, but that, sometimes making decisions, you know, as a group.
Rules.
But 11 board members now, I've proposed, this is sort of funny. Back when we had 90 some members, this, you know, it started out with 170, and I was president back in the 80s, and I said, I think we should bring it down to 7 or 5, you know, an odd number, but there's too many. The meetings can get really long with 11 people, you know, and I think 5 or 7 can make the same decisions and not be so drug out, but no, you're all wet. Some guys were going to sue me, and I said, what are you going to sue me for? I brought it up this was at end meeting, this how they can get hot. Anyway, and you're going to court, and I said, I just brought this up, you know, it can be voted on. They voted it down, fine, that's part of doing business. But now, go 30 some years later, 35 years later, now they're talking about it again. I sit there and smile. Yeah. So anyway.
I actually have a couple of questions, not just one. Sorry,
That's
I've been taking notes. When you were talking about the grazing, like the grazing blocks and your grazing, right, the grazing plan and stuff like that, you had mentioned something that if you didn't have enough cattle to fill your, or you call them shares, or your rights.
Rights.
So
Rights.
what happens to your rights that you have?
You
Do
keep
they?
you can keep your rights, but you can go non-use.
Okay.
So
For up to 3 years, you can go non-use if you don't. For some, you hit hard times or something, and you can go non-use, and they're still your rights, but they'll go to somebody else for that year. and
So
then
somebody else can use them.
so
Yeah,
Yeah.
so-
and,
Okay.
Somebody else can use them for that year.
like Larry doesn't have. He's 10 cows short, so he's going non-use 10. But I have 10 cows extra, so hey, I'll take them.
So then, so like hypothetically, if you had some rights and you decided to get out of the cattle industry, you didn't want them anymore, what happens to those rights? Do you sell them off? Do they go back to the association doles them out among the members, or are they bought and sold type thing, or how does that work?
They're with the land.
Okay.
So if you want to get out and you sell your land to another, say if I sell him to Tom, my land to Tom, he can pick, if he qualifies, if he's in the area and shows need, he can pick them rights up, that proportion to that acreage that he buys. Or if I want to keep my land, I can turn them back. And then they can reappoint them to who, and first it would go to someone in that pasture. Next it would go someone in the block. And if nobody in the block wants to fill it, then it would go association wide. So if the first people, in that pasture first chance, people within the block second chance, but it's just open wide to the.
And we do pay a fee to graze cattle.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then you had said when you were talking about the permits, I believe. I just wrote down no more than 400 head of grazing. Is that 400 head per person or per block?
Per person.
Oh wow. Okay.
So there's roughly 10 or 11,000 head
Oh wow.
in that area.
Okay.
But it used to be 250. You know, I was talking.
Mm-hmm.
It's state law. You can go to 500 head.
Okay.
But our association, it was at 250. I'm not sure. I used to go to meetings, state meetings. Maybe they're up to 500 out west. I'm not sure. But we elected to stay at 400 just to try to keep our membership up.
There's also a grazing association in the western part of the state.
Yeah. The Missouri
There's more than
Grassland.
that.
Yep.
Little Missouri, and
Yep.
there's the McKenzie County, and then there's the Horse Creek, and then there's also the Grand River out of Lemon, but it's got some in North Dakota.
And then my last question actually has to do with June grass, because I grew up in the Idaho desert and June grass runs rampant, and I know your pain when you're talking about stepping in them, because you can't get them out of anything. You might as well throw your shoes and socks away, because they're not coming out. They're staying in there forever.
Needle grass? Needle and thread?
The
Or June grass?
June grass.
Oh,
Yeah, or maybe no, the needle and thread grass. But to the June grass, you were saying that they said it's an introduced species to the
Yeah.
lands, and that if they were to, like you said, they like poisoned them, there's the seed heads are still in the soil. Would burning get rid of that, or are they always going to be in that soil? Or do you guys use burning as a way to control June grass?
they talk about it. Not a lot of that's been done. They do burn. I, as a livestock producer, I want to convert it to protein beef.
Mhm.
I say go in there and graze the living bejeebies out of it.
And then back off.
And then
let the
get
warm
out of it, and
seasons
then the
come.
get off, and then the warm seasons come better. And just, you can put pressure on it, and you don't have to buy chemicals, you don't have to, you know. I like that method better. And like where we run our, like where, say where the boys calve now, it just grazes like a golf course.
Okay.
But
Early
then,
spring.
but that's early
Right.
spring.
Yeah.
But then they get off and they don't come back there until next year again.
Right.
And you should see that grass, the native grasses.
Yeah.
Oh my God. They really respond, but that opens up sunlight for them warm season to get grasses. See, June grass can get sort of matty if it's thick, and it can slow the native grasses down. Where if you get rid of that competition by just grazing, it's going to be good.
That's it. I'm done with my questions. Sorry.
I have a couple questions too. Is it possible for, like, if some people in a block got together, is it possible that you could get, like, qualified to burn so you can burn yourselves?
Not anymore.
Used to be. The new ranger was working towards that again, so sometimes they go full circle. I don't know where Bryce, our youngest boy, is the director there now. I'd have to ask him.
Okay.
But I heard him talking that the new ranger was open to that, and he was a sort of a breath of fresh air compared to the one previous. He was just, but he's pro ranching and he's just a good guy. It's sad to lose him, really sad, but he's going back to Wyoming, and his wife's family's from out there. So.
Okay, and then you said you can make improvements on the land, but is there regulations to that? Like, you can't just go in and, like, put a water hole anywhere?
No, they gotta do an archaeological study. If you're gonna dig a water hole or that, they, make sure there's no Indian artifacts or anything like that.
And then you can't, like, do any, like, thing to the plants or anything in the area too, can you? Like, to improve it? Like, if you have an area that's just getting taken over by sumac, can you go out and take care of it yourself, or is that regulated?
You gotta, if you get permission from the Forest Service, you can. And like I say, there's a couple gals out of Lisbon right now that are super good people, and they've been good to us. I guess not me anymore, but the boys, everybody I know get along with. I haven't heard a bad thing about it.
Okay.
So,
And then my last question is when do you make your plan? And is there a set time that you discuss, like when you make your plan? And then can that change? Or like how do you know exactly when you can let your animals out?
it's usually every year similar, but they change rotations, and that's with the Forest Service gal and the permittees. And then a lot of it's started at the block meetings, which is usually in December. But this year they were pushed back to January. But for the next coming season now, they're things they propose, and then any improvement on the ground, like a new fence or a new watering facility, whatever it may be. But they've been relatively good the last, I'm going to say, I don't know, that guy, how long he's been there, 4 years?
It depends on, I mean, there's a number of cows. And then acres. And how many head this can handle. And, like, okay, so in 19 they started, like, they started in pasture A. They started there, and then they went to B on the next rotation. And if like you don't get any rain and it gets dry, and they think, oh geez, this is getting kind of short, you can move on to the next one. So like you started in A in 2019, then you went to B, then you went to C. Well, maybe next in 2000 now, maybe they'll start in C, and then so they get the you get your cool seasons earlier.
But in your true past, like Alan Savory, if you've ever, any of you have ever studied him, I don't know. But when it's dry, you should move slower. Because your grass is going dormant, you're not going to hurt it any worse than it's hurting already. But when the grass is growing fast, and you keep biting it, every time you bite it, you're hurting the roots. And when you hurt them roots, because the roots got to grow an inch, your plant is healthy above the ground it is below the ground, and a lot of the root reserves to put back. So if you keep grazing up, biting it off, a lot of years fast growth sometimes it's not a good. You should move quicker to keep that plant really going.
Last call. One last question.
I guess I get one. Who's responsible for monitoring the pasture, the blocks? Is it up to the people within the block?
Yes.
So
monitoring, but then you have a block director, like we're in Cheyenne block, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And right now our son Bryce is the director. He gets a lot of calls, and then he goes to the Forest Service lady, and they work it out. So it's stressful at times.
Yeah.
But she's a super gal.
You kind of coordinate with the Forest Service.
So does he, as the director, does he go out and monitor the pastures every day, or is that up to, does he get help from other people to be out there? Because you're checking on your cattle when you're
should
there.
be checking too,
Yeah.
and then they should talk to him, and then he talks to, in this case, Stacy Swenson. She's a super gal.
So it's not up to one person, it's a community effort.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I had a follow up. How many acres are roughly in a block? Like, I know they're all basically different, but at least in
it's
Cheyenne
really
block.
weird, in all honesty.
Yeah.
We're in Cheyenne block.
Yep.
There's 11 blocks. We're in Cheyenne block, and we cover 1/4 of the whole Grazing Association.
Yeah.
That's
what I figured.
So that was
Getting back to, we only
number
need
of
so many
directors. I
directors.
said,
Yeah.
why do we need some, some of them guys, and the biggest gripers are where they got 3 pastures in their whole block. I said, you don't do nothing. In all honesty, and not that, I don't dislike you or nothing. It's just the fact of the matter,
Yeah.
we can do better manage with fewer people, I think, in that regard. Not to say that their input doesn't matter.
Comes time to say thanks. I'll let you get back before you get dozy at the wheel.
Yeah.